Hello, welcome to HTML5 tutorials, chapter 9, HTML5 canvas gradients, part 3, brought to you by Ankpro Technologies. My name is Harish. In this session, we are going to learn about the canvas gradients. So, gradients can be used to fill rectangles, circles, lines, text, etc. Shapes on the canvas are not limited to solid colors. There are two different types of gradients. They are createLinearGradient, which takes 4 parameters, and createRadialGradient, which takes 6 parameters. And we are going to understand why the linear gradient is going to take 4 parameters and the radial gradient is going to take 6 parameters when we code in Visual Studio. And keep in mind, once we have a gradient object, we must add 2 or more color stops. So the addColorStop method specifies the color stops and its position along the gradient. Gradient positions can be anywhere between 0 and 1. So you can set the gradient position by setting the value between 0 to 1. To use the gradient, set the fillStyle or strokeStyle property to gradient. Then we have to draw the shape. In the sense, first we have to tell like what the gradient you need, and finally you have to tell the shape, okay, where the gradient is going to apply. Okay, now without wasting much time, let me make you understand how to draw or how to get a create linear gradient. Okay, it's very simple. So what we'll do is, first let me jump into here is the piece of code, JavaScript code, to draw to get a linear gradient. And without wasting much time, let me jump into Visual Studio Code and let me show you a demo. So head, it tells like, let me give a title, it's linear gradient. So now what we do is, let me take a canvas tag. So the canvas, we have to assign the ID. So the ID, let me give it as my canvas. Okay, and let me set the height and width to this container, that is that is canvas element. So let me set the width to 200 pixel, and the height, let me set it to 100. And what I'll do is, since canvas tag does not contain any styles by default, so what we are going to do is, we are going to write a style to that canvas element. So the canvas element contains a border of 1 pixel solid black, okay. And now let me push this page to the browser. Here comes my page. When I double click on that, you can observe we will get a container in the sense, the canvas element with the border 1 pixel solid black. So now our objective is, okay, this is a container. Inside the canvas element we need to draw okay, or this is a rectangle. So what we need to do is, we need to draw a rectangle, then we have to fill a gradient inside it. So how do I do it? It's very simple. So let me go back. Okay, now what I'll do is, first, okay, let me take a script tag. So inside the script tag, let me create a variable called yes is equal to, so I'm going to identify that element, canvas element, by its ID. So what is the ID? The ID is my canvas. So I'm identifying the canvas element by its ID, my canvas. Then what we'll do is, we will create a drawing object, that is get context. So where ctx is equal to, so let me ctx is equal to s dot, okay, s dot get context. This is the drawing object. So you have to specify the value as 2D. So once we have the drawing object, next what we need to do is, we need to create a gradient. So let me comment to like CREA create. So what gradient we are going to create right now? It's a linear gradient. So in order to create a gradient, what we need to do is, let me take a variable and let me add grd, the variable name. And so we have a drawing object assigned to a variable called ctx. So ctx dot, okay, let me call this here create, okay, linear gradient. This is the method, create linear gradient. So let me go back to presentation and let me explain you. Here you can observe here, create linear gradient, it takes four parameters x, y, x1 and y1. So this x represents coordinate of the starting point of the gradient. Okay, this x represents coordinate of the starting point of the gradient, and this x1 respectively, it represents, okay, the ending point, okay, the coordinate of the ending point of the gradient. Similarly, y represents starting point of the point of the gradient, and y1 represents the ending point of the gradient. So we need to pass four values. So what I'll do is, let me pass like 0, 0. That is 0 is the starting point, and 200 is the ending point of the x coordinate, and this also I'm taking at 0. So x coordinate starting point of the gradient is 0 and the ending point is 200, and starting point and ending point of the y coordinate both are 0. Okay, this is how we have drawn a gradient. We have created a gradient, linear gradient. Now once we have created a linear gradient, so what we assign it to a variable, so called grd. So this will be having the linear gradient, okay, ready. So we need to add a color, add a color stop method. So here it can take two parameters, like it has to start from the 0 position and the value should be the red, or let me take it as blue. Okay, and again grd dot add color stop, add color stop. So it's 1, it's white, so grd dot add color stop, and grd add color stop, it's white, blue and white. So now what I need to do is, I need to fill with the gradient. So what we have done right now, we are call this create linear gradient, and we are telling like it has to start from x coordinate starting point and it has to end as x coordinate, that is 200 point at the 200 coordinate, it has to end at the 200 coordinate. So similarly, starting and ending of the y coordinates is 0, 0, and starting and ending coordinate of x axis 0 to 200, and we have called this add color stop method. So why do we need this add color stop method? It specifies the color stops and its position along the gradient. So we have taken the combination of blue and white, okay, gradient in the sense it's a combination of two colors. So now we have to fill the gradient, everything is ready. So it's very simple. What I'll do is, I need to call that object ctx, then I need to tell like fill the style, okay. So it is equal to grd, to which it has to fill the styles for the gradient. So what we are telling is ctx dot fill style is equal to grd. So here it's a combination of two colors, blue and white, so that is going to apply to this ctx, the drawing object what we have created in essence. So next what I need to do is, I need to call the respective shape, that is I need to call I need to call a rectangle, okay, fill rect. I need to tell like 10, 10. It starts from x axis and y axis at the 10, 10 position, and the width is 150 pixel and the height is 80 pixel. So let me do Ctrl S. Now let me push this page to the browser. I've already done that. So let me refresh it. You can observe here we have drawn, okay, the rectangle, okay, of the height and width, okay, 150 and 80 pixel, and we have applied the linear gradient. You can observe here, okay, the starting point of the linear gradient, okay, it's from 0 and it has to apply to 200, okay, completely. And this is what the create, okay, linear gradient gives us Okay, gradient, it's a mixture of two colors, so I've taken two colors, that is blue and here in the example I've taken as red and white, but in my coding I've taken blue and white. It's a combination of two colors. So if you wish to create a linear gradient, then you have to make use of this method. So the first thing is you need to identify the canvas element, and second step is you need to create a drawing object. Once you get the drawing object, okay, we have to create a linear gradient first, and then whatever the linear gradient we have created, that should be applied to the drawing object. Okay, and finally we have to call the shape. This is how we can achieve the linear gradient very successfully. This is what we're getting it right now. Okay, and now let us, this is very linear gradient. Okay, now let us draw a radial gradient. So you can observe here the formula for radial gradient is, it looks like this. It takes 6 parameters. So you can observe your x, y, r, x1, y1 and r1. So the first x coordinate, what it represents is it's the coordinate of the starting circle of the gradient. It's the coordinate, this x1 is the coordinate of the ending circle of the gradient. Similarly for the rest of them, that is y, but r represents the radius here. Okay, r represents the radius of the starting circle. So now let me show you how to create a linear gradient. Here is the formula for that. So it's very simple. Let me remain all the things, but only I'm going to change these things. Okay, so let me go back, and here I have to change the values as well as the method also. The method is radial gradient. Radial gradient. So let me pass the values. So let me take the values whatever I've assigned here: 75, 55, 75, 50. The 5 is the radius. Okay, then 90, 60 and 100. So the values are 90, 60 and 100. So let me do Control S. So let me go back and let me refresh. Here you can observe this is called the linear gradient, sorry, radial gradient. Okay, it's applying in the form of circle. It's called radial gradient. Okay, so it takes 6 parameters. Okay, the 5 represents the radius and 75 represents the coordinate, x coordinate of the starting circle of the gradient, and 90 represents y coordinate of the ending point of the circle. Similarly 50, it represents the starting circle of the gradient, y coordinate of the starting circle of the gradient, and this represents y coordinate of the ending circle of the gradient. And this again you can observe here at the last. Okay, this is 100, so it represents, okay, radius of the ending circle. Okay, and this is what about like how do you create a linear gradient as well as the radial gradient with the help of two methods. Okay, create linear gradient and create radial gradient. So this is how we can achieve the gradients with the help of these two methods. So finally, thank you for listening. Have a great day. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel Ankpro Training. You can also like our Facebook page visiting this URL. You can also follow us on Twitter. For further reference, refer our website. We are on LinkedIn too. Last but not the least, please don't forget to give the feedback. Thank you. Have a great day.